Hey everyone, welcome back. We're doing a deep dive today into something pretty interesting, the impact of family dynasties on the American economy.
Right.
And, you wanted to know more about this whole idea of like family dynasties and their influence specifically in the U.S. and the sources that you sent over really focus on this particular group of families that all share a heritage.
Okay.
And built, these massive businesses.
Yeah.
We're talking familiar names like Goldman Sachs, but also some that you might not recognize right off the bat.
Yeah, that's what's so interesting about this is when we think about like powerful families in business.
Right.
The Rothschilds often come to mind.
Right.
Those with more of a global reach. But the families we're looking at today,
Yeah.
they really honed in on the U.S. They built legacies in everything from finance and real estate to, the clothes we wear, the hotels we stay in.
Totally.
What I think is really interesting, too, is like these legacies are still being written.
I know, it's crazy to think about, right? Like it's not ancient history.
Right.
This is happening right now.
Exactly.
And it really is mind-boggling to think about how these families built empires from scratch.
Yeah.
And, what kind of ripple effects that's had on all of us. I mean, I know talking about wealth in specific communities can be a little bit, tricky.
It can be a little sensitive.
Yeah, it's sensitive.
Yeah.
We're not here to pass judgment on anybody's fortune or anything like that.
Yeah.
We're just here to try to understand the impact that these families have had on, like, the average American.
Yeah, like on all of us.
Yeah, and to see those connections. You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. It's about sort of tracing those threads of influence.
Okay.
And I think to understand that, we have to sort of go back to the heart of the American dream.
Yeah.
Right? This idea that anyone, regardless of background, can come to this country and achieve success.
Yeah.
And these families, with their immigrant stories and entrepreneurial drive, they're part of that narrative.
Yeah.
But I think their success raises a really crucial question.
Okay.
How much influence does a family business empire, really wield in the lives of everyday Americans?
Right.
Like, how much does it actually affect us?
Yeah, that's the question, right?
Yeah.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And that's the question that we're going to keep coming back to throughout this whole deep dive.
Absolutely.
And I think there's no better place to start than with, like, the story of Goldman Sachs. I mean,
All right.
talk about a classic American tale.
Classic.
Marcus Goldman arrives as a peddler and ends up creating one of the most powerful financial institutions in the world.
I mean, it's practically a movie waiting to happen.
Seriously. It's crazy.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting is how Goldman Sachs went beyond that traditional banking model.
Okay.
Their introduction of commercial paper, for instance, revolutionized how businesses accessed short-term loans.
Okay.
It provided a more flexible and efficient alternative to bank loans, particularly for smaller businesses. And that really helped to fuel economic growth.
So they were helping the little guy in a way.
In a way, yeah. I mean, it's all relative. Right?
Yeah.
Oh.
And then there's their pioneering role in IPOs.
Yeah.
Taking companies public and essentially shaping the landscape of American capitalism.
As we know it.
I mean, that's crazy. I was reading that they took Sears Roebuck and Company public in 1906.
Wow.
Which is wild to think about considering how iconic Sears became.
Yeah.
It just makes you realize how far back their influence stretches.
Yeah, it's true. And by facilitating that access to public markets, Goldman Sachs played a key role in the rise of corporate America. But it also raises questions, I think, about the concentration of financial power.
Yeah, for sure.
When a single firm has such a significant hand in shaping markets, does it create a system that benefits a select few?
Right.
Or does it actually fuel healthy competition?
That's a really good question.
It's something to consider.
Yeah, for sure. Food for thought.
Yeah.
And speaking of reach, I was blown away to learn that Goldman Sachs owns Rockefeller Center.
What?
I know.
Wow.
Talk about a landmark.
Yeah.
And it really highlights how their influence extends so far beyond Wall Street. It's not just about stocks and bonds.
And not just finance.
Yeah, it's woven into the very fabric of American life.
Yeah.
From the places we visit to, as you mentioned earlier, potentially even our personal finances.
Yeah, that's a great point.
Right.
It begs the question, what does it mean when a single firm has its fingers in so many pies?
Right.
Government bonds, mergers and acquisitions, even personal loans and savings accounts. That level of interconnectedness gives them incredible influence.
Yeah.
And I think it's worth examining how that impacts everything from market stability to individual financial well-being.
It's a lot to consider. It makes you realize how these seemingly distant financial giants actually play a role in our daily lives.
Yeah, absolutely.
And speaking of shaping landscapes, both literally and figuratively, I think that's a perfect segue to our next family, the Pritzkers.
Okay.
Now, while they have a very diverse portfolio, I think they're probably most recognized for building the Hyatt Hotels empire.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I mean, who hasn't dreamt of staying at like a luxurious Hyatt resort or marveling at that iconic atrium of the Hyatt Regency Atlanta?
That's an image.
I know.
Yeah.
They've really become synonymous with a certain level of travel and leisure.
Absolutely. Their impact on the hospitality industry is undeniable.
For sure.
But what's really interesting is their strategy actually went far beyond just hotels.
Okay.
They understood the power of diversification really early on.
Okay.
And they ventured into industrial companies, senior housing, even the world of venture capital.
Wow.
They have this knack for identifying emerging markets, spotting opportunities before they become mainstream.
That's impressive.
That's a pretty impressive feat.
It is. And their story takes a really interesting turn with J.B. Pritzker's governorship of Illinois.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
It makes you think about, the implications when immense wealth and political power intersect.
Right.
Does it create a pathway for positive change?
Yeah.
Or does it raise concerns about undue influence?
Right. Is it one or the other, or is it both?
I mean, it's a complex issue, right? There's no easy answer.
No, it adds another dimension to their story, I think.
Yeah.
And it sort of ties back to that question of influence we're exploring. How does a family like the Pritzkers, with their vast business holdings and political connections, shape the policies that affect not just their home state, but potentially the nation?
Right.
That's something worth thinking about as we keep going with this deep dive.
Absolutely. It is. It makes you realize just how intertwined these families are with the American story,
Yeah.
Their entrepreneurial journeys, their successes, their controversies.
Yeah.
They all contribute to this ever-evolving narrative of American capitalism.
For sure.
And speaking of narratives, let's turn our attention to a family whose story is very deeply intertwined with American culture itself, the Fishers.
Okay.
And the rise of Gap Inc. I mean, it's more than just a clothing company.
Yeah, Gap is iconic.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a brand that's become a cultural touchstone for generations.
Yeah, it's fascinating how they managed to capture the spirit of like different eras, from the counterculture movement of the 60s
Right.
to the preppy trends of the 80s.
Totally.
And the athleisure boom of like recent years.
It's true.
They just adapt and they evolve.
Yeah.
Constantly reinventing themselves to stay relevant.
It's smart.
And capture the hearts and wallets of American consumers.
I was reading that their initial focus was actually on selling vinyl records alongside jeans.
What? Really?
I know. Can you imagine?
That's amazing.
Talk about understanding your target market.
Seriously?
Right.
Wow. It shows they had like a very keen sense of what resonated with young people.
Yeah.
Like a knack for tapping into that cultural zeitgeist. That's smart.
And that savvy approach to marketing combined with their like revolutionary retail concepts, like the wall of jeans and the emphasis on brand name stores.
Right.
It helped them revolutionize the way Americans shop.
They understood the power of creating an experience.
Okay.
Of turning shopping into something more than just a transaction.
Right. So it was like an event.
Yeah, exactly.
And that experience expanded with their multi-brand strategy.
Yes.
Gap, Old Navy, Banana Republic, Athleta.
It's brilliant.
It's genius, right? They created a portfolio that catered to different tastes and budgets, essentially capturing a huge segment of the market.
Yeah, it really did.
It makes you wonder how much their strategic decisions shaped not just what we wear,
right,
but like our overall consumer habit.
That's a great point. Their reach extends far beyond just the clothes themselves.
Right.
They've influenced trends, dictated styles, and even shaped our perceptions of ourselves and our place in society.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but it's powerful. It is. And I think we can't forget that Gap Inc. is a massive employer, which means that their business decisions have a direct impact on livelihoods, not just in the U.S., but across the globe.
It's a reminder that these families and their businesses, they're not operating in a vacuum.
No.
They're part of a very complex ecosystem interconnected with our lives in ways we might not always realize.
That's true.
It's almost like they're weaving this intricate tapestry of influence,
Yeah, I like that.
Thread by thread.
Thread by thread.
Impacting everything from our wardrobes to our wallets to the very fabric of our culture.
Yeah, it's a powerful image, and it highlights the importance of understanding the interconnectedness of business culture and individual lives.
Yeah.
And I think as we delve deeper into the stories of these families, we'll continue to kind of unravel those connections and explore the profound impact they've had on the American landscape.
Okay, let's do it.
Let's get into it. And as we kind of keep unpacking these stories, one thing that keeps coming up is this idea of innovation.
Okay.
Like, these families didn't just inherit wealth, they built on it.
Right.
Took calculated risks, pioneered new approaches that completely reshaped industries.
Okay. So give me an example.
We'll take Goldman Sachs.
Okay.
Their early involvement in venture capital, particularly in the tech sector, played a huge role in shaping Silicon Valley.
Right.
And like the whole digital revolution we're living in now.
It's true. It's incredible to think about how their early investments in companies like Apple or Microsoft helped fuel the rise of these tech giants. I mean, they weren't afraid to bet on emerging technologies.
Yeah, they had a good eye for it.
They did. And those bets paid off in a huge way.
They did.
Not just for them, but for like countless individuals who benefited from the jobs, the products, the services created by these companies.
It's true. It really is a testament to their vision and their understanding of how innovation drives economic growth.
Okay.
But it also raises some really important questions.
Like what?
About the role of venture capital in shaping our technological landscape.
Okay, so like, are they shaping it in a good way?
Well, yeah. Does it prioritize profit over like societal good?
Okay, interesting.
Does it concentrate power in the hands of just a few investors?
These are all good questions.
It's definitely something to think about.
For sure.
Especially as we kind of move through this increasingly tech-driven world.
Totally. And those questions about influence and power, they become even more interesting when we consider the Pritzkers.
Okay.
And their venture into senior housing with V.
Oh, yeah. V.
It's not the first industry that comes to mind when you think about, like a family dynasty.
No, not really, but it is a growing market.
Yeah.
But I think it speaks to their entrepreneurial spirit.
Okay.
And their ability to identify, like, those unmet needs in the market.
Yeah, like they saw a need and they were like, okay, let's fill it. What I find fascinating about Vi is that it wasn't just about providing housing for seniors.
Right.
It was about creating this whole new model of senior living.
Exactly, like a new way to think about it.
Yeah.
One that focused on community engagement and active lifestyle.
Wow.
Penny Pritzker, who kind of spearheaded this whole thing, she saw an opportunity to disrupt this really traditional industry and offer a higher quality of life for this growing demographic.
It's smart. It's almost like they anticipated the changing needs and aspirations of an aging population.
Totally.
And in doing so, they kind of created this new market and influenced how we think about aging in America.
Yeah.
They weren't just responding to a trend, they were actively shaping it.
That level of foresight is something we see over and over again with these families.
It's true. It's a pattern you can't ignore.
Yeah.
Whether it's Goldman Sachs investing in emerging technologies or the Pritzkers revolutionizing senior living.
Yeah, they just have this knack for anticipating the future.
Yeah.
And positioning themselves to capitalize on it.
And that ability to adapt and evolve, that's got to be one of the key factors behind their success.
For sure, I think so.
Speaking of adaptation,
no
one embodies that concept quite like the Fishers.
Oh, yeah.
And their ever-evolving retail empire, Gap Inc.
It's a really remarkable story of entrepreneurial resilience.
They started with a single store selling jeans and records.
Right.
And grew into this global powerhouse.
Yeah.
With a portfolio of brands that caters to basically everyone.
It's amazing.
It's a masterclass in understanding the American consumer.
They've navigated changing tastes, economic downturns, the rise of e-commerce.
That's true.
Constantly innovating and reinventing themselves to stay ahead of the curve.
Sure.
Their multi-brand strategy is a perfect example of how to capture different market segments and build this really diverse customer base.
It's brilliant. It's like they created a brand for every stage of life.
Yeah.
From the youthful energy of Gap to the sophisticated style of Banana Republic to the athleisure-focused Athleta.
It's true.
They recognize that consumers evolve, and they evolved with them.
Yeah, dude.
ensuring their continued relevance
Right.
in a constantly shifting marketplace.
Yeah, and that evolution isn't just about chasing trends.
Okay.
It's about understanding the underlying values and aspirations of their customers.
Interesting. So, like, what are we aspiring to?
Well, they tapped into this desire for comfort, affordability,
Okay.
and a sense of belonging, creating brands that resonate on an emotional level.
It's true. It's like that they become part of the American fabric,
Yeah.
woven into our everyday lives. I mean, we wear their clothes, we shop in their stores, we see their brands reflected in pop culture.
It's everywhere.
It is. It's everywhere.
Their influence is subtle but pervasive.
Totally.
It shapes our perceptions of style and value, and even like our own identities.
It's true.
And I think that influence extends beyond just the realm of consumerism.
Okay.
These families with their vast wealth and resources,
Uh-huh.
they've also become major players in philanthropy.
Okay.
Their charitable contributions support all kinds of causes,
Like what kind of causes?
from education and healthcare to the arts and social justice.
It makes you think about the role of philanthropy in their overall legacy.
Yeah.
Like, is it a genuine desire to give back?
Right.
A way to address inequalities that their businesses might have contributed to? Or is it a strategic move to kind of enhance their reputation,
Yeah.
influence public perception?
That's a big question.
Yeah,
It's a complex question.
it is.
And it's probably a mix of motivations.
Right.
But I think regardless of the intent, their philanthropic endeavors do have a significant impact.
Okay.
They fund research, they support social programs, they shape the landscape of nonprofits.
That's a lot of influence.
Yeah, it gives them a level of influence that goes way beyond the boardroom.
It does. It makes you realize that their impact isn't just about profits and market share.
Right.
It's about shaping the social and cultural fabric of the whole nation.
Yeah.
They're not just business leaders.
No, they're patrons, they're influencers, in some cases even political figures.
All wielding considerable power
Yeah.
in shaping the world around us.
And that power, coupled with their immense wealth,
Yeah.
raises a really fundamental question
Okay.
about the distribution of resources and opportunities in America.
Yeah.
Does the concentration of such vast wealth within a relatively small group of families create a system that perpetuates inequality?
That's a big question.
It is.
Or do their philanthropic endeavors
Right.
and their business innovations ultimately benefit society as a whole?
Yeah. Is one or the other, or is it both?
I mean, these are the questions, right?
Yeah, I think these are the questions that continue to spark debate
Yeah.
and fuel these conversations about the future of American capitalism.
It's a debate worth having.
Absolutely.
And exploring the stories of these families gives us valuable insights, I think, into the complexities of wealth and power and, the pursuit of the American dream.
Absolutely.
They've achieved this extraordinary success.
They have.
But their stories are also intertwined with these ethical considerations,
Yeah.
social responsibilities, and, the ever-evolving dynamics of a globalized economy.
Yeah, it's complicated.
It's complicated. Yeah, it really makes you think about the legacy these families are building, not just for themselves, but for future generations.
Right.
I mean, they've amassed so much wealth and influence.
Yeah.
But how will all that be used?
That's the question, isn't it?
It is. It's the big question.
Yeah.
Will it be a force for positive change? Or will it just perpetuate these existing inequalities?
It's a question that's been debated for centuries,
I
right?
guess so.
Can inherited wealth, even when it's coupled with this entrepreneurial spirit, can it really level the playing field?
Right.
Or does it create this inherent advantage that makes it almost impossible for others to compete?
Yeah, it's a tough one.
It is. And it's interesting to see how these families are grappling with these questions, each in their own way.
I was really struck by the Pritzker's commitment to social justice initiatives.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, they've been very vocal advocates for LGBTQ plus rights and have supported organizations working to combat racial and economic inequality.
Yeah. Seems like they're trying to use their platform
Yeah.
to address some of these like really deep systemic issues that are plaguing our society.
Like they're trying to actually make a difference.
It seems like it.
Yeah.
And I think it highlights this growing trend we're seeing
Okay.
among like younger generations of wealthy families.
Okay.
They're not content with just writing checks anymore. They want to be actively involved in creating meaningful change.
Right. So it's not just about charity.
Right.
It's about actually getting in there.
They're leveraging their resources to support grassroots organizations, advocate for policy reforms, and really challenge the status quo.
What do you think the future holds for these families?
Well, it makes you wonder, right?
It does.
Will they continue to just amass more wealth and influence? Or will they face increasing scrutiny, calls for greater accountability?
Okay.
Will they use their power to address these, like, really pressing social and environmental issues?
Right.
Or will they just prioritize their own interests?
Right. It's hard to say.
It's hard to say. Only time will tell.
Yeah, I guess we'll see.
We will. But one thing's for sure, their stories, I think, will continue to captivate us.
Yeah.
Spark debate.
Yeah.
And challenge us to think critically about the role of wealth and power in our society.
Well, I think that's a perfect place to wrap up our deep dive.
Yeah.
We've explored this fascinating and complex world of family dynasties.
Who have
uncovered their origins.
traced their impact.
Pondered the questions they raise about wealth responsibility and the pursuit of the American dream.
It's been a thought-provoking journey.
It has.
And I hope it's encouraged you, our listener, to continue exploring these ideas and to engage in these ongoing conversations about the role of business philanthropy and social responsibility in shaping a more just and equitable future for all.
That's what it's all about, right?
I think so.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep asking questions, keep seeking answers, and keep diving deep.